What if releasing what is blocking your potential was simpler than you thought? In this conversation, we explore the power of energy clearing. It just might change your world.
Dr. Cindy here. I'm a physical therapist and exercise physiologist, bringing all kinds of different essential therapies that I have found in my work. And today I'm super excited to bring on a couple of people that have become very dear to my heart. Michael Grady and Lotus Dawn. I met you guys going on a couple years now, I think, pretty soon. And I'm just so grateful that you came into my life. And I'm going to start by saying, Michael, it really drew me to you when I heard that you were a hypnotist at one point in your career, as I dabbled with that a little bit. And I'm just going to let this open for you to kind of explain who you are, a little bit about your hypnosis past, which I think is super exciting. And we'll dive in there a little bit. Lotus, share about what you're doing. And I just want to say, please listen to this, because I have had some amazing experiences, not only in myself, but in a handful of patients that I've been able to share this with. And this is next level. When we add it to the physical healing that we're doing with John Barnes myofascial release and the structural work, I've been talking so much more about emotions in the body, which medicine has kind of ignored. We can't ignore it anymore. And when you address it and you have a tool to help clear some of these energetic and emotional blocks that we have in our body, it's amazing. So Michael, tell us about you.
Sure. Well, today you see, as you're interviewing us, we do create a lot of positive results for people on Zoom calls, on our workshops, whether it's physical pain, emotional things, manifesting different scenarios in their reality. And we do it with a very practical, reliable system. And I came to learn all of this first, as you just mentioned, as the hypnotist. Right. I was a younger kid who was abused by my dad, and I had a lot of emotional insecurities and issues. I didn't feel like myself. I was super shy, very timid, very conditioned not to do much, just being confused and abused a lot. And so I knew early on that I needed to do something about it. And so I prayed to God, please help me find a way I can master my mind and my emotions. And this was just after my dad did an abusive thing, and I took a bat and I was slamming it on my bed and things, and just kind of broke down. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this board game called the Mastermind, right, where you guess the different pieces for the other person behind the little thing. And just that word influenced me, I think, to do something about it. And so I made that prayer, and it took years later where I found books on self-hypnosis, and so I learned it. And an interesting story of how I found this box of books with the self-hypnosis books, and I was with my friend, and I asked him if he wanted one, and he took it, and he went and read it that night, and he actually read it, and he read the self-induction at the beginning of the book, I think on chapter 2 or whatever, and he actually had this out-of-body experience where he interacted with this recently passed away girlfriend of his, and he told me the next day, and I was just like, that really can happen? Like, that is wild. And so I go back, and I have some of the bigger books that he took the small book. I had the bigger one. So eventually, when I got to that self-induction part, I read it, and I'm like, well, nothing's happening. Read it again. Okay, it's still not happening. And so I actually had to really work this stuff to actually make it work. He was more of a gifted, imaginative guy. And so I ended up coming to the place where I went up to my dad after working on myself and working the self-hypnosis induction so many times. I was able to go up to my dad and just forgive him on my own accord, because I created that healing for myself to a certain degree. And so that was my big moment of transformation, where I was able to get into these states and make myself feel happy. I would go through a breakup, go into one of my sessions, come back out, and I'm just like completely fine. It's almost like you have your conscious and your subconscious minds, and they just have a moment where they connect, everything makes sense, and all is resolved. That's if I can describe the feeling. And so I was able to get to that place, and it was really beneficial. And so once I started having this improvement, and my friends and my coworkers were noticing that I had a completely different behavior, I decided, well, I would like to share this with other people. And so I saw people saw a guy doing self-hypnosis. I'm sorry, a hypnosis show at a local high school that my girlfriend was going to at the time. And so I saw this, and as soon as I saw it, I knew that this is what I wanted to do in the future. And it was interesting because I was the kid in the audience, like, pick me, pick me, pick me. You know, I brought the camcorder, you know, the big VHS camcorder on your shoulder and everything. You know, he's like, you can't videotape. And so I wanted to be a part of the show as much as possible, but he didn't pick me for whatever reason. But he did say, we're going to get to you later for something special. And he never called on me. And so I went out of the show. I was just like, well, I thought this guy, he like did an ESP show and stuff. And I actually, later on, I found out he actually did it for real. And I was just kind of perplexed. I thought he was going to call on me. So I let it go. I ended up learning the stage hypnosis bit. The year I went into business was the year that he actually retired, and I basically scooped up all of his clients.
Wow.
So I became very successful very quickly as a stage hypnotist, which allowed me to get a lot of practice in, you know. So I did a lot of shows, hypnotized thousands of people, and I got to really see what hypnosis can do. And it's very amazing. You know, it's a real thing. You can make people do things they wouldn't normally do, and so forth. And did a lot of therapy work, and that was also very helpful for a lot of people. One of the big successes I had that I made a video about was there was this lady who had a fear of all animals, and even just little kittens and anything, any kind of animal, she just had a total freak out thing with. And so I worked with her, did one session, and then she wanted a second session just to make sure. And I thought, you know, I'm like, you're okay, but she wanted a second session. And so we went out and we went to this dog adoption thing that they had outside. At like this open place, and I had her, you know, she really is on her own accord. She hopped inside like this cage with all these big dogs, and she's petting the dogs, and she was just having the time of her life with all these dogs. And she never, and so when it was posted on social media, all her friends were just like blown away because she never goes to their houses, and so it can create amazing results. But the thing is, eventually, I ended up just having the realization, and then further having it confirmed by some of my mentors, that hypnosis is actually not good to do because you create more unconsciousness, which is a weird term and maybe not really easy to understand. But trust me, I was super deep into the hypnosis world, and it's an amazing way to actually learn psychology. But, you know, I remember Lotus and I went to an event where I spoke on stage with James O'Keefe, right, the whistleblower guy. Anyhow, this was after I was on Alex Jones, and they brought me into this event. And we were sitting at the table with this lady, and she's like, oh, yeah, I had hypnosis done for quitting smoking and losing weight. And she just had this air about her where, if I were to kind of share what her vibration was, it was just like, I can't do anything on my own. I need people to do it for me, kind of thing. And so to have people come to you like, please make me quit smoking, make me lose weight, make me do this, make me do that. And I never liked that. You know, I got into this so I could display the power of the mind, and people could have the cognition that, okay, you could do something else. But most people just want someone else to do it for them. And so I was like, well, I can teach you how to do self-hypnosis or something. And not everyone is willing to go on that path because it's quite a learning curve. You know, it takes a lot of time. It's like, okay, I want to be a master at meditation. Well, okay, then you got to meditate every day for maybe years to really actually get it. And not everyone's willing to do that. And so, you know, I really wanted to search for other ways that we could get similar results where maybe someone's not willing to do those kind of things. And so I ended up finding a different teacher who showed me a lot of different methods. And his first number one, and this is Kevin Trudeau, who used to be in a secret society and has a lot of amazing information and ridiculous results. And so I was like, okay, so this guy has amazing results. All of his students that he works closely becomes millionaires and amazing results. So I'm going to learn what he's teaching. And so one of his biggest recommended modalities was TFT, thought field therapy, which is the tapping technique. And a lot of people are familiar with EFT. That became a lot more popular. But EFT is the more simplified version to TFT, because TFT is a little bit more advanced and technical, and EFT is like, okay, we're just going to tap on 6 points, and maybe that's the most that someone actually learns about it. But there's so much more to create more specific results, and especially when it comes to healing and getting the body to respond. You really want to have more of the technology available. Sometimes it's not necessary. As you've seen in some of our classes, we had a guy who had this chronic back pain that hasn't gone away. I think he said he had it for years. And he simply did the neurolymphatic stimulation exercise, which is just rubbing on the top of the chest where you find the sore spot right above on your chest. And you just stimulate that while practicing an acceptance type approach. And so, very simply, just even though I have this pain, I love and accept myself. And I asked him, well, how do you feel about the pain? Well, it makes me sad. Okay, even though I feel sad about this pain, I love and accept myself. And all of a sudden, his pain went away. Right? So easy and simple, but it was very precise, because if he didn't acknowledge the emotion that went with it, the pain wouldn't have gone away.
I think I was on that call, Michael.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. I remember thinking, what? How did that happen so quickly? And I think you were surprised too.
I was surprised, because it usually doesn't happen that fast, but it can.
Yeah.
So, so I've been on this path of to find ways to make this stuff work. And, thankfully I've had a mentor that actually showed me a method that's actually, really, really, really useful and has amazingly high success rates. And so if that didn't work for him with the sore spot, then there would have been a whole myriad of other exercises that we would have done diagnostically to help him get out of that. Right. So
it's interesting. I want to kind of go back for a second about your the hypnosis part, because it reminded me that so many years ago, I think it was 23 maybe years ago, I had come upon, I was intrigued by hypnosis for weight loss, because my mom did it once when I was younger, and also for smoking. And I had several patients who were smoking and wanting to stop. And I was like, I knew someone in my circle who was teaching these classes, I don't know, 10 weeks long or something. And it was really just deep relaxation we were learning. And it went in well with, I had also been through yoga instructor training. And so you do yoga nidra and the relaxation and the stress management techniques and all of that. So I felt like that all kind of was in the same realm. So then I thought, well, why can't I start doing this for chronic pain? And I remember doing it for patients with jaw pain. So I got into just taping for them. I had the little cassette tape, back then. And they would come in and I would just guide them while I was treating them and speak through this basically hypnosis session and record it. And then I had a tape dubber and I would dub the tape and send them home with the tape and ask them to listen to it every day. And it worked. Like, people who were pretty compliant with that, they did notice even more improvement. So I didn't do that for a very long period of time, maybe a few years, but not everybody was interested in it. But I think that's partially why I was so intrigued when I heard that you had done hypnosis. And funny enough, I remember in high school, we had a stage hypnotist come one time. It was a big high school, like 2,500 students at that high school. And it was, I thought that was pretty cool back then too. But so you then went into this whole energy clearing space. Let's talk about that a little bit more, and just kind of the TFT. I actually have the book here. So tell us a little bit about Roger Callahan. And it's been fun. I haven't honestly read through this whole book, but I like to go into different places. There's some really amazing things in here. So tell us more about Roger Callahan and your training and the science maybe behind that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great book to get started with it, and actually has a lot of different exercises on how to get through different uh, ailments and things. However, that information is outdated,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because of so many different factors in our environment, such as more Wi-Fi and cell phones and toxins in the air and the food and so forth. So it's not as easy to get over things as it once was, like from that book. However, the book is definitely great to go through. And so, yeah, Roger Callahan, he was a practicing psychotherapist who had an amazingly successful practice in Hollywood. And the reason why it was so successful is because no one ever got better, right? So you have the same clients who come in day after day, year after
Right.
year, right? And so unfortunately, that's how that business is structured.
Mhm.
Is you kind of lead people on with the illusion that this is a real functioning thing because it's accepted medically, right?
Mhm.
And so people just stay going on in these psychotherapy sessions. And so Roger was actually someone who wanted to create results, though. And he talked about how he would go to these conventions with other psychotherapists and psychiatrists, and that's just how it was like how to create a better practice for everybody, right?
Mhm.
And so he was one of the few that wanted to create results. So he started studying all different types of different modalities. And on one of his trips, he went to China to learn about acupressure and acupuncture. And so he came back from one of his trips, and there was this lady named Mary who had this insane water uh, fear. And so Roger had a pool in his backyard with his home office, and so he'd literally be able to open the blinds and show Mary the water, and she would actually start to feel afraid and get uneasy. Roger worked with her for 2 years with all these different desensitizing techniques and everything that he knew about, and nothing really worked. It worked a little bit where she was a little bit uneasy, but still, she would not approach the pool at any point. And so when he came back from this acupuncture class in China, he noticed that she held her stomach. She's like, "Oh, it makes me so sick to my stomach." And he's like, "Oh, well, there's a stomach meridian right here underneath the eye. Just go ahead and just stimulate that point right now by just tapping on it in your face." And she does that. All of a sudden, the color in her face comes back. She was flush white. Now the color came back. And then she says, "Oh my God, it's gone." "What do you mean?" "The fear is gone." And so she then rushes out and go towards the pool. And then Roger says, "Wait, you can't swim." And she says, "I know." And so she just sat down in the pool, put her feet in, and she was fine. And Roger continued to check on her, and the fear never came back. And so that was the first big breakthrough that this was something that could work so specifically. Now, tapping has been used. If you ever see any Taoist practitioners, like any Shaolin guys who have like a morning routine or something, they'll tap on their bodies, to get the chi stimulated, right? But to do it diagnostically or specifically for like an issue, I believe is a new thing, right? Acupuncture and acupressure, they have their systems too for very similar things. But Roger's technique was very breakthrough. And so he continued to do these experiments with his clients. And funny enough, he was never able to duplicate tapping one point and a whole thing go away all at once. That was the only one time.
Beginner's luck, right?
You kind of, yeah. So he was a big proponent of how God likes to hide things, and has you try to find them. So he developed a very intricate system to help people get through. First, it was fears and phobias. He created the 5-minute phobia cure, right? And so he went on all these talk shows in the 80s and 90s demonstrating how someone would have this massive fear of spiders. They go back and do the tapping sequence, and then the person could hold the tarantula in their hand and be fine, things like that. And then he created the 5-minute addiction cure. How you could get over any addiction, food cravings, cigarettes, and so forth, nail biting. And then he continued to expand into different areas because he found out that this could be used for so many different things. Fast forward many years later, an EFT practitioner created a documentary called Try It On Everything, because you could literally just have all your tapping points and just focus on anything and just tap on anything to clear these energy meridians, which is your energy, which is contained with your thought field. When you think of something that makes you feel bad, it's literally Roger called a perturbation in the thought field that prevents the energy flow, which gives you the uneasy feeling. And so if you can do the tapping like Mary had, blow out the perturbation or the energetic imprint or the memory that creates the stoppage of energy to put you into a fight or flight scenario to make sure that you stay living, because the unconscious mind recorded something in your history to try to keep you away from the thing that threatened your life before, right? Mm-hmm. Just like, and here's how the hypnosis background really ties into this, is that it's very similar to a hypnotic suggestion, where if I tell you, every time you see a tree, you're gonna start itching. You're just gonna start itching every time you see a tree, and you're not even gonna know every time you see a tree. You're just gonna be like, every time I go outside or every time I look outside, I get itchy. You're not gonna even know it has to do with a tree, right? Especially if it's all unconscious. And so all of our stuff, these irrational fears and the things with our body and all kinds of stuff, it's all very much based like that, because when we go unconscious, the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind is recording the environment to say, stay away from this, stay away from that, stay away from this, stay away from that, because you almost died. We're going to make sure you survive. And so then you wake up from unconsciousness, and now you have this thing where, okay, I'm deathly afraid of water. I am deathly afraid of heights. Mm-hmm. When it's super irrational, and it's super beyond anything, rational. So, and it's amazing how you can tap on meridian points to dislodge or dissipate these things. And even still, today as we do it, we've done this for thousands of people in all different types of ways. It's still miraculous how this is a thing. How you can just kind of hack your energy system in a way. Yeah. You got these buttons all over your body that's kind of invisible that you can't dissect really. Although if you put radioactive isotopes in those points, it'll actually light up the meridian, and then if it's X-rayed, you can actually see them, just like they've been depicted for thousands of years on these energy meridian charts, right?
That's very cool. That's very cool. Because, we talk about in myofascial release how it kind of looks like webbing. I like to think of spider webbing, but you can actually see, they have living video of this now, but you can see that there's fluid, and that these fibers, which is all connected and goes through every single cell, is hollow and filled with liquid crystal. It's our consciousness, it's our memories, our traumas, our joys, all of that is flowing through the fascial, the microtubules of the fascial system, which is holding everything together, and it goes through. We used to think, even in school, I used to think that fascia just went around muscles and around organs. It doesn't. It goes through everything. And then you connect that to the whole idea of the meridian channels and the energy centers and the flowing of energy through the body and through the microtubules of the fascial system. Wow, which is why I'm talking so much more now about we can't ignore the emotions in the body. Our body is a manifestation of how we are holding on to our memories, our traumas, our emotions, our experiences, the past things that have happened to us, how our energy field has gotten knocked off of where it should have been because we were in a car accident or whatever. And then when you talk about, we talk in myofascial release about subconscious holding patterns and how the solidification of our body and that fascial system and the ground substance, the fluid that's all around that, is often, and probably way more than we even acknowledge as myofascial therapists, because of these subconscious holding patterns, that is 95 to 97% of everything we do, right? So it makes so much sense to me. actually have my little chart here too that that you did for us. Yeah, that shows these places and just how simple it is, but just with awareness, what we can do with that. Well, Lotus, do you want to pipe in here? You're just kind of hanging out.
Lotus also has a hypnosis background, and it also has a lot of energy clearing background.
So just these. Okay, so you're talking about tapping. Okay, so people have heard of tapping a lot.
Right.
More, I think it's much more common now. You can get apps to help you tap through different things. But this is, like you said, a lot more really specific and planned out, I would say. It goes kind of deeper. But these points that you're tapping on, how involved is it? Like, I'm imagining what people are thinking, well, what are they talking about? Like, what are we really talking about? We're talking about tapping on these points that are connected to the meridians. And
here's an example. When you ever get mad and you hit your hand on the side of the desk or the side of the table or something, like, frig. Well, that's actually a major point that we use, of the side of the hand, which actually creates reversal connected to the small intestine, right? So a lot of the times we'll start out, and if you ever see EFT videos, they tap on the side of the hand. Even though I got these things, yada, 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 I love and accept myself, which is actually an outdated way to do it that Roger Callahan did for his first student who started EFT. That changed. Anyhow, that's a main point that actually does help a lot. And so you will innately, hit the side of the table with your hand and actually maybe feel a slightly little bit better, right? To kind of get yourself back into actually making a change or something. You'll notice when you get, feel down or something, you'll be like holding your face. Well, you're actually touching certain meridians and activating them, right? You're completing a circuit that is otherwise blocked, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll do these things innately. Also, a lot of these points will become sore, as we actually call this the sore spot, because a lot of people, it has pent up energy that hasn't been released, right? A lot of people have a sore spot right underneath their armpit, which is actually a major place where we tap. Sometimes it's sore right here because that's a place that we tap. And so that's actually a little bit of a clue. If you have a sore place on your body, it actually could be linked to a meridian that has a voltage issue or a blockage. You can take a voltage meter, which we still got to get another one. I fixed my other one yesterday, but then when I was using it, I think I slammed it in my pocket or something and broke. But you can actually measure the voltage of these points if you find a meridian chart, and then you have the right meridian, the right positive and negative polarity points that you find, like one on your thumb, on the inside of your thumb, and then you find some of these points that you tap. You can actually see a positive or a negative or a high or a low voltage to see what is the health of that meridian, right? And then you can use some of these techniques to see, does it actually change the voltage? And it does, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then furthermore, each meridian or organ it's associated with is associated with and has been known to be connected to certain different types of emotions and feelings and so forth, right?
That's what I would love to memorize.
yeah it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't memorize it, you can just tap all your points to kind of get the whole swing of it. But it's amazing how that is, in traditional Chinese medicine, they've known this for thousands of years, right? And now we actually maybe have something that's a little bit more easier and more useful instead of breaking out the stainless steel needles. Right. Trying to find the point on your own, which is a little difficult. You can just stimulate it by tapping on it and then see, okay, do I feel better after I do it? And then some people think, well, maybe I just distracted myself, But usually if you're in like a deep depression thing, it's usually not as easy to just distract yourself to get out of it, But
it's funny you say that about being tender. That makes a lot of sense because just the other day I was doing and all of these in my face were very tender, and I'm like, I just knew that that meant I needed to do more, So I did several things, and it was definitely better by the time I was done. And it reminded me that day that years ago I used to do, before PT school, I did foot reflexology. I went to that training, so I like did that during PT school. And boy, the tenderness on those reflexes, and that's related to the meridians too. So I would find these areas that would be super tender. And one time I was a student, actually. I was working on a patient with plantar fasciitis, right? The foot is pain in the foot. And so I'm like, well, hey, I'm really good at working with feet. So I started to do some foot reflexology things just to loosen the area and everything. And I came upon the kidney spot, and you're just not pushing very hard. She about jumped off the table, and she's like, ow, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And so I didn't want to like say I was really doing foot reflexology, but I just kind of asked some questions. I said, hey, have you ever had any kidney issues in your life? Just like, being curious. And she goes, oh, actually 2 weeks ago I had passed a kidney stone.
Wow.
I know. So, I mean, that was really a confirmation back then about how this type of thing really is so valid, it was really, really interesting. And so I just worked it gently until it wasn't so tender anymore. And I don't know what ended up happening with her. It was like a clinical, but it was really, really interesting. So that's good confirmation about the tender spots. I know. Lotus, so I want to mention that Lotus has done some amazing work with me. And I think the thing that was really so profound, it was probably a year and a half ago, Lotus. Do you remember this? I don't remember the exact topic. I won't go into all of that, but we did this incredible clearing on me. And the bizarre thing was that in my rib cage, the next day I had this strange breakout. Do you remember that?
I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Oh,
that was some deep work we did.
Oh my goodness.
That can happen. Yeah.
Subconscious holding patterns. There we go. So wow. Let's hear from you a little bit, Lotus. I don't necessarily mean to bring up that particular session. I mean, if you remember anything about
it's powerful.
I don't, but it was definitely very powerful. And
on the route of that, Lotus developed a method where, with the reflexology points, she'll have you rub your hands together like this at the same time, kind of directing the energy out and so forth. And it works really, really good. Almost like tapping on your points. This is kind of almost a faster version of stimulating your whole body.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you a little bit of my background so you can get a sense of things. So, age 15, after 15 years of trauma with the family and feeling at this point of, I can't take it, I can't live with this emotional pain, I made a decision that I was going to figure out and heal whatever was in me, whatever was in my family that was throwing me off. And so that's when I went and I got my BA in psychology. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to solve it all. I'm going to get my BA. I'm going to get my diploma. I'm going to know how to fix my emotions and feel better. Oh boy. Graduated from college, and it was worse, actually. It was the pain I was in, no answers. And that's when I studied hypnosis. I figured out that the mind has an effect on the body. I figured out that our subconscious is 99% of everything that we're going through, and that skin eruptions, when we release energy, can happen. This was all new to me. Fast forward to learning about the effect of the emotions on the body, and that we store our emotions in our body, and that we can actually store the emotions not only from our lives, but from our ancestors in our body. That was a huge flashbulb moment. Now, what was really cool is I learned a technique to clear stuck emotions at this time. A very powerful technique, part of what I've integrated into the work I do now. And my mom, sitting next to me one day, she goes into absolute agony, and she's holding her side, and she's rocking and in pain. I've never seen her like this. I'm terrified. I'm like, Mom, do I need to call the ambulance? My mom, not a fan of Western medicine, all about herbs, all about natural healing. She's like, no, don't you dare call the ambulance. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm here stuck with my mom. She could be dying for all I know. What do I do? And it flashed on me. what if the pain she's going through is related to some kind of stuck emotion? Maybe there's some stuck anger or fear or sadness that's just erupting. So I said, well, are you open to me using this technique to clear stuck emotions? And she said, anything. Just please do something now. So I did the technique, just tuning into the body, did a very simple process. I had her clear once, nothing happened. Okay. Twice, nothing happened. 3 times, something started to happen. 4 times, the pain was gone, literally gone. She just takes a deep breath and she lays down and goes to sleep. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there with my mouth hanging open, having just witnessed to me what felt like a miracle, having gone through psychology, school, and thinking that we needed to go see a therapist to heal and get better, or go see a doctor. And literally, she had just transformed right in front of me. That's when the passion for how are our emotions affecting our lives? How are the traumas that we've gone through still stored in our body? And how do we get them out? Became a passion. And when Michael started teaching me the tapping method, it was like taking all of the energy healing methods I'd learned and turning it up 100, 1,000 times. And the success rates and the stories that we hear day in and day out from people dealing with issues around back pain, right? We worked through, with you and I, a deep emotional thing that was so many levels that I think that's why you had that outbreak, right? I had to get out somehow, right? Mm-hmm. We are holding in our bodies literally the memory, like you're talking about the fascia, of so many emotions from us, from our childhood, from our DNA. They've actually scientifically proven that whatever our ancestors go through, let's imagine for a moment, our ancestor 10 generations back on our mom's side is walking down the street one day, and a carriage comes hurtling down the street and almost hits your ancestor. What do you think your ancestor felt in that moment? Did they feel fear? Did they feel terror? Were they afraid they were going to die in that moment? Well, science has shown that whatever emotions they felt in that moment actually have the power to change the DNA, to get coded into the DNA, and then get passed down to us. Mm-hmm. And I walk around wondering like, this issue I'm dealing with, or my client's dealing with, or my friend or my family is dealing with, where is it actually from? And then enter the clearing method that we have been able to use with so many people to clear the roots of very deep issues, from blocks around making more money. We've had so many clients come to us. One woman worked with Michael, and he helped her tune into this big emotional block. The next thing we hear, she says, I manifested $650,000 that I didn't know was coming, just showed up in my life. And you could tell, like in the moment that we were doing the clearing with her, you could tell something had changed. And I just get so excited. I'm so happy you're having us on your call today, because seeing so many people shift and transform just by, no one ever tells you, you could tap the side of your hand and rub right here and actually maybe increase your income or clear back pain you've had for 10 years. The application for this is so widespread. We've seen it help we've seen it help everything that comes in contact with. So I just wanted to share my story a little bit, because fast forward to now, I have been able to shift and finally start transforming the things that I went to four-year university to get my BA in to shift. Mm-hmm. Now they're changing. Now that pain has gone away. Now I'm happy. Now I'm clear. Now I'm excited. I can't even believe if I held up a picture of where I was 15 years ago after I graduated from college versus now, I am so much happier, brighter, and just so loving life in a way that I never thought was possible, because I've been able to clear the emotions that were holding me back. And so, honestly, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. In my life, it's been a miracle in so many of our friends' lives and our clients. And Michael, why do you think it works so well?
Because who we are is being restricted. Anything that's not who we are creates the illness, creates the contraction, right? And so
And restriction, there's that word, myofascial restriction is what I'm working with, right? So yes, and not just the structural, but the energetic. So
it'll manifest. It'll manifest in the physical, right? Like very quickly, right? Pain in the heart will cause restriction in the heart, will cause, heart issues, right? And so forth, with all the correlating of parts of your body and different organs, right? I mean, I recall a time where there was a woman dying in the hospital of cancer, and so her mother called me up to do a session, and after the session, they did her blood work and got all of her health levels again, and they all normalized after one session. Right?
wow.
Yeah, and she was in bad shape, right? And all of a sudden, she's now recovering, right? She was in a state of dying and then switched to a state of recovery. And if you're going through a thing, ask yourself, what's the big stressor I have in my life right now, right? And if you can handle that stress or you can clear the issue, then you're probably going to increase your health.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember teaching at the medical college here for physical therapy, a stress management course. This was early 2000s and around 2001, I guess, 2002. And no one was really talking about that very much, but I had just finished yoga instructor training, a big thing that I went through, and just had seen it so much in my own life. And even in undergraduate, I took every stress management course I could take because I was just really interested in that kind of thing. And this was around the whole hypnosis time and everything. And I remember researching for this class, and I came across a quote from the National Institute of Health. In 1995, they made a statement that 80% or 85% of all illnesses are related to stress. Okay, 85% of all illnesses. I remember reading it 3 times in a row. Did they actually say all illnesses? They said all illnesses are related to stress. Well, fast forward, I recently researched this again. They have changed that number to 90% of all illnesses are related to stress. But here's the disturbing thing in my mind. Where in any of our medical programs are they teaching anything about stress management in a way that it really helps to relieve that stress contraction in the body? It's just not happening. And everything that our world has been through in the last 5 years, you would think that, and back, I can remember always kind of carrying the sign of learning how to manage your stress. But these techniques are, like you said before, next level. Like, talk about relieving. I mean, yes, breathing alone, learning proper breathing. I see people every week who I'm just watching their breath. They don't know that I'm watching their breath, and they are stuck in a stress breath pattern. They cannot breathe, So sometimes even just doing myofascial work can help to open that restriction. And then with some education and retraining the neurological system to breathe properly is helpful. But when I think of all of these things, putting them together, that's why I'm so excited. And I have started this practitioner program with you guys. I think it was a year and a half ago I actually started doing some of this training. I haven't done a lot of integrating it with my patients, to be honest, until recently. I think part of it is, again, with the background that I have, doing all of this graduate work and being a physical therapist and kind of that medical side where we are so ingrained that everything has to have outcome-based studies. Okay, so it's a big deal. Even since I graduated from PT school 29 years ago, it has gotten even more strict in that regard. So you shouldn't do anything in physical therapy that doesn't have these major outcome-based studies. The problem is that I'm seeing now are patients coming in pretty much every week that have tried all the traditional things, and maybe they've been through 2, 3, 4 rounds of physical therapy, and they're actually worse. So our traditional methods that are talking about all these outcome-based studies, guess what? They're not working. So when we find things like this that are outside of that circle, and John Barnes' myofascial release approach is one of them. Years ago, he's been ridiculed for 50 years trying to bring this type of treatment in, and really hearing a lot of the things that you mentioned, Lotus, of people feeling just, free from this blocked, and that's kind of what we're doing. And even though we're focusing a lot on the structural, our method talks about myofascial unwinding and releasing that in an energetic way. And to be able to incorporate all of these things, what a wonderful option. Like you mentioned, the woman you worked with, Michael, who recovered from cancer. Like, okay, that's not going to happen to everybody, but what if it was your loved one or yourself, or all these different things? Like, it's worth a try, being so simple and just having the openness to give it a shot. I mean, we're talking about something that takes about how long to do? I know, Lotus, you and I have had some pretty long sessions, okay? So maybe I'm not the norm, but let's talk about that. How much time do you guys spend with people, and how do they actually work with you? How do they get a whole, do you do sessions for them? I know we're doing, I'm involved in your training class, and you don't just have practitioners. I'm probably one of the few healthcare practitioners that, I think you have a psychologist right now, and I don't know anybody else that's doing body work that's in your courses, but tell us, how are you getting this information out there, and how are people receptive? Who's following you? And
so it's a lot of different practitioners, right? We have an EMDR practitioner. A lot of people just in self-development world want to feel better. Some people have some certain specific modality. They're studying different modalities. They have different ailments and things, right? We have one woman in the class who she was able to stop her medication and be able to get off medication and not do medical procedures, which was amazing. And it's been really great to hear your success stories as you've been practicing this with your clients, and it's so encouraging to hear those stories.
I have a story. Yeah. This story blows my mind. I just have to share it. So last year, 2 years ago, my mom fell and broke her arm. Right, she's 80 years old now, so it was a little scary that she'd broken her arm. And we went to the bone doctor, which is always a really interesting place to go. Interesting energy there, people get their bones fixed. Mm-hmm. And so we go in, she gets the x-ray on her arm, and it is not good. It's a little bit twisted, and there's some concern that they're going to have to operate in order to fix the bone. So I'm all worried because she's a horrible candidate for surgery. She's 80 years old, right? It's not typical, not ideal. So I talked to Michael. I'm like, you want to assist us? Let's do a session for her and see if we can help her bone straighten itself out, right? Because the body has the power to heal itself, right? Maybe we could help it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we're actually not in the same town at the time. And so I call him on the phone. I sit next to my mom, and over the phone, he tells me where to tap. He's like, tap here, and think about your mom. Because my mom was a little bit open to the tapping, but a little bit shy too. So she's like, you tap for me, I'm cool with that. So we do the tapping routine, and I'm watching her, and she's having these crazy yawns, which, if you're familiar with energy work or energy medicine, yawns mean you're releasing energy. So we do the tapping process. She has huge yawns. She basically goes to sleep afterwards. Fast forward to her next appointment at the bone doctor to find out, is she going to have surgery? Oh my God. I'm just sitting there praying. I'm like, God, please, 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 make sure that she doesn't have to have the surgery. Just please. They come in with the new x-ray, And the bone has literally straightened itself out enough. It wasn't perfect, but it was better, to the point that they didn't have to do surgery.
Wow.
And we're just cheering in the office. I'm like clapping for the doctor. I'm like, yes. I call Michael. I'm like, oh my God, she doesn't have to have surgery. Wow. And that's just the beginning of the depth of stories we have. We could probably.
How long did that session take?
That session was 15 minutes top.
That was a 15-minute thing.
15 minutes. And it literally affected her bone in her arm.
Yeah. So what's happening in that instance, if you have bones that are dislocated and they're not sitting right, a lot of times it could be because the polarity of the bones are off and backwards, and so they're going to be like opposing magnets, not fitting together. And then finally get the body to go back into a healing state. Okay, it's safe now. Release the incidents, release the emotion that maybe created the instance. Why did you manifest that in the first place, right? What's the feeling there, right? We explore those things sometimes. And then fix the reversal of energy on the bone or in the body, and now the bone is going to be attracted to be back into a healing place, right?
What do they say about cancer and polarity? I thought this was really fascinating.
Yeah.
What were the figures on that?
So there was a scientific study that Roger Callahan talked about in some of his advanced training, how they studied cervical cancer, and those who had a malignant condition with the cancer, 96% of them had reversal. They were in reversal. Their chi energy was in a reverse state. Or another way of saying it is they're in a counteractive healing state of beingness. Mm-hmm. And then those who did not have the malignant condition only had 5% reversal. And so there's a major correlation where you can pretty much say, if the person has cancer, there's probably a reversal. And I would go further. If you were to measure different places, you'd probably find it. And I believe it would be 100% if they actually test more parts of the body with it. Mm. But it's a major thing.
What were they using to test the polarity?
A voltmeter.
A voltmeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something for your audience that you can actually buy yourself, and actually take the voltmeter and place one of the ends on one of the tapping points, right? Because there's points at the upper lip here, the collarbone points, and you can actually place the voltmeter and get a reading yourself. Is it testing negative or is it testing positive? And if you have a negative reading, that means there's a reversal, which means that you're more likely, you're not going to be in a healing state. So reversal means you're in a opposing healing state, and non-reversal means you're open to healing. And that actually is one of the reasons why people aren't healing, is they have these negative polarities, these negative reversals, possibly caused by trauma, right? Possibly caused by a toxin that you can actually correct and clear with the work that we do.
Yeah, and just before we get on, Cindy, you're showing a little picture that's in Roger Callahan's book of the blood cells being all condensed into each other, and then after doing a tapping sequence, they're then all spaced out, able to get nutrients, and so forth. Right.
So this is they're stuck together here, which is not healthy. Right. And then here they're all spread apart in a way that they should be. Yeah, very fascinating.
And so then think about, fascial, contraction, right? As above, so below, and then you have the muscle contraction, and then I gotta think. And so, if we can release at the energetic level that's creating the contraction in the first place, maybe then we can allow the body to heal, and then maybe it's easier to adjust the body afterwards. Because, and I love what you're doing is you're really integrating both sides of the energetic, mental, and the physical. And I think that's really important. It's like going to the chiropractor and keep getting adjusted, but keep going out of place, and not actually addressing what's the actual thing underneath. That's really hard for people to get or find or to realize. However, in most cases, it's probably so big it's just straight in front of your face, and you're just not dealing with it, or maybe not willing to acknowledge that maybe that's the reason why. My brother recently, he had a heart attack, and he's younger than I am. To think that he's getting heart attacks at this age is just like, wow. And he's not really open to the things I do. He's more into the Christian perspective, and they stick with that, and that it's worked for him. So, and so, one of my first questions is like, so what's one of the big stressors in your life? And currently, there's a thing going on with our mom that he's having a hard time with. But for him to connect, heart attack with stuff with mom as being like a thing, some people just aren't willing to see that, and so by you going through, okay, studying stress, right? That would be a type of stress, right? You could put all these different types of names of emotions on it, right? And scenarios, but when it comes down to it, it's stress, right? Yeah. And can we deal with a situation where we're not so affected that's going to throw our bodies off? Can we deal with it maybe with a sense of faith and trust, or understanding, or ability that we can do something about it? How can we deal with things where we're not being so affected? Mm-hmm. This is a huge thing. Can we deal with life where we're not so affected?
Right.
And can we take responsibility that we're being affected by things?
Yeah.
And then is that going to shift our health?
Absolutely. And, you mentioned the Christian perspective, and that's, my upbringing was very strong in a Christian community. And I had some resistance in my early days of, gosh, is this okay? And like even the hypnosis thing. And then I realized it was related to this whole stress thing. And so to me, I think it's very much in line with, I often think Jesus put hands on people. What was he doing? He was, and he was creating a calmness and about not worrying and all of that type of space. And I love with this work that you guys are doing, it's bringing in not just the intuition, but the intention of what we want into the body, right? And then the self-love, which is going to raise our frequency, because everything has a vibration, right? And if it's vibrating low, it's not as healthy. If it's vibrating higher, it gets healthier. And so to me, I'm putting all of this stuff together in my mind, and with myofascial release, we're using a lot of this too with intention and all of that. But when we use this tender spot and we're stimulating this neurolymphatic drainage area, which is important because of the lymphatics is super important, right? But we end what we're talking about with, and I love and accept myself. And I mentioned this recently in one of the trainings. I think this alone is so extremely important because I see a lot of people have a hard time with that. I mean, I had a hard time with that. It took me years, and my myofascial journey was super important in helping with this, along with lots of other personal development things that I was doing. But to learn how to love ourselves and the judgment that we put on ourselves and how that brings us down, it brings our frequency down, it doesn't allow us to heal. Just the beginning part of what you're doing and having people do, I think can shift people. And I've seen it shift so much. And I just have to mention this because you brought up the heart thing. So my dad passed away 3 years ago, and we're coming up to that anniversary here next couple weeks actually. And kind of unexpected, but my mom, not even 6 months later, never had any heart issues of any kind. Her mitral valve tore. It just spontaneously tore. And, I went through a period where I was afraid I was going to lose my mom. It was horrific. And she was able to get surgery and she was okay. And she got through all of that. But she literally, her heart broke after that. Isn't that amazing? So, yes, I think for us to open our minds as not only healthcare practitioners, but everyone to accept this truth that emotions are manifested in our body is so important. If we just even take that first step of acknowledging that and then having that intention to want to relieve it so that we can feel better and so we can feel good now, like what a huge step. So I feel like we have to shout it from the mountaintops, you know?
Yeah,
And
really.
it's not hard, right? It's not a difficult thing. It's just hard for us to get out of our pattern of what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully all the results and the stories of people healing and having shifts is inspiring for other people to actually, to go for it. And we've taken a lot of time to break down how to teach this to people. So, we've done trainings in the past where we just like, okay, here's all the information, go for it. And only one person would learn it, which is we had one person who was a doctor who actually took it and learned it and saved a girl's life. They thought she was going to die. But then everyone else is kind of just left there, just kind of sitting like, I don't understand it. It's just so much information, right? Because it's not just tapping all the points. There's just so many other parts to it. And so we've developed a system where people can learn this at a really moderate pace that creates really amazing results all the way through. Starting with learning how to do this tender spot thing. That's the first thing we teach everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And when we first taught this on the workshop with the first group, the first person who started sharing went into a state of bliss when we did this correctly, right? Mm-hmm. And so it made also situations with people getting out of the chronic back pain and things. And so just using this and using it in a very specific way where you're just really acknowledging everything that's there. And it sounds like it can be easy, but sometimes we have so many things that we have that we're not actually acknowledging in the moment right now that's actually unconscious, but you're experiencing it. It's weird. But it becomes this process of self-discovery. Mm-hmm. And then once you learn that, you can learn, and we continue to pile on the different techniques one by one, so you get more results, and then more results, and then more results. So for those who are interested in learning that, we have a system that we have taught people through, and you can learn it.
This most recent class that you've been with us and doing after having been through many classes together now, I've been really impressed with how Michael has really broken things down and made each step much more clear and accessible. And the results now that people who have never done energy work, they've never done this type of stuff before, are just phenomenal. I mean, people are sharing their wins every single class. Even one of our students is helping the young children she works with their belly aches or with stress or with anxiety. And she is so happy and ecstatic because she finally has a tool that she can use to help the children that she works with as a teacher. And I just find that so inspiring to think about the next generation. And,
I think she even got prevented the ambulance from coming to the school.
Yes. Yeah. This approach can save lives. I know this personally because I was able to use one of the portions of this modality with a friend whose dog had eaten poisonous mushrooms. And she calls me after going to the vet and thinking this dog is going to die. And I had just gone through Michael's masterclass. And so I knew how to do a toxin release to clear toxins, which is another component of this work. And I'm like, okay, I'm really scared. I have to be honest. Like, I was so nervous. Like, I don't want to mess it up. I hope I do this right. And I get on the phone with her. Over the phone, again, we do the tapping method. We do the toxin release for her dog eating the poisonous mushrooms. And after 30 minutes, the dog, which had been lying on the ground on its belly, legs straight, spasming, having, seizures, unable to go to the bathroom, unable to eat or drink, gets up all on his own, goes outside and goes pee. And she's like, oh my God, it's working, right? And so the next day, I was like, let's make sure we get all the toxins out. We did another 30-minute session. And this time, he gets up, he goes outside, he does number 2. And at this point, we're celebrating, we're jumping up and down. I'd never been so happy in my life for a dog going number 2. But people who have animals, you know that if an animal's not going to the bathroom, that's dangerous, right? So getting them to actually be able to go to the bathroom is a big deal. And now to this day, when I'm out on a walk up in the neighborhood where she lives, I'll run into them and she's like, "Oh my God, Lotus, you saved his life. We're so grateful." And I'm just like, wow. And thinking about all the applications, again, that this work can have to help people save lives, first responders and medical practitioners and PTs, being able to be there and respond to potential emergencies that can come up for people and have a tool that actually works. We know one woman who was on a plane and a little boy had a peanut allergy. And because of what she knew with her energy work, she was able to clear the toxin, the allergy, and they didn't have to turn the plane around. And
they were turning the plane around. She was able to stop the reaction. They kept the plane on course, and then they gave her
1 million frequent flyer miles.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it can pay to be the good Samaritan
That's
sometimes.
amazing. Wow. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's just amazing. Like how come we're doing this stuff, but the medical professionals have no idea?
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation. But
Definitely.
this is accessible to anybody.
Yeah, I think it would be so great to, and I'm not sure I'm the one to do it. Maybe there's so much stuff going on in my world, but how cool would it be to have a call like you've been having these calls recently? They're just like brief, like we go through the things, you pick a thing, to be able to help my clients and patients with that. So that's kind of my goal where I want to get with this, is to be able to have something to help them whether it's every other week or once a week or however often, to be able to say, hey, just, if you're open to this, do this with what we're doing. Let's see if this can help some of the issues that you have. It certainly can't hurt. And if anything, what I've discovered or what I've seen is people are kind of feel like it's weird, like, I don't know, this feels weird. This feels weird to do this, Like
we have a story about this. We have a story.
Tell me.
Which
Yeah.
one is that?
So Jim, one of Michael's first students, just awesome guy.
Yeah.
He loved the work. It helped him lose 40 pounds. And his son had an issue, right? His son was having issues with his swim meet. So he would be, swimming, and he'd go to his practice or his race and his competition, and he'd like stop, he'd pause. He like couldn't get past this mark to get to win. And so he's like, well, you want to try this tapping thing that I've been learning? And his son's like, okay, Dad, whatever. And so they do it at home. The next time the kid does the meet, he freaking wins and like smokes the competition, just like absolutely overwhelms the competition.
Well, he tied with the leading kid.
Tied with the lead kid.
Which was just extraordinary. Yeah.
And so Jim reports that now, after having this tremendous success, I think there was another incident where the child just was terrified of, like, was it braces? Putting braces in?
Putting in the mold to get the teeth for the braces. Yeah.
He couldn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
He was so freaked out. He just couldn't do it.
So they did the tapping method. And next thing we know, Michael gets a picture of the little boy in a chair getting the molding in, and his thumbs up, just totally fine, doing it no problem. And so after that, Jim shared with us that now his little boy is there like, hey, can you tap with me? And they're just tapping. He doesn't care who's watching. He doesn't care who's around, because he's had so many successes with it that he's just like, yeah, let's do it, because I know how much better I'm going to feel afterwards. And I think there can be some embarrassment at first, but after you get to a place where you have so many successes, you're like, I want everyone to know about this. Like, hey, you want to come join me? Let's do a little tapping circle here, right? Yeah. So it's just like any new thing, right? Once you have that amazing experience, you don't even care. You're just happy to feel better.
Yeah.
Even Tyson, who his kids were having nightmares, so they just had him do the system that we've been teaching them in this last class, which is the very simple version. Now they fall asleep, they're going to bed, and no issues. Now the kids are wanting to do it more often. Now they're inspired to do it. So maybe a little weird at first, but once you find that this is tapping in and hacking your energy system, that is giving you a lot of things that you need or want, you'll probably get on our side of the road and like start talking about it and encouraging others to do it.
Right. Which is why we're having this conversation, because I have so many of my patients, I want them to know about this. And I almost feel bad not sharing more about it, but I feel like there's always so much I have to say to my patients. I can't just get through everything. So this is one of the ways, one of the things that I use to get information out. And it's available, and we can help people. And I think it's cool to be able to do it on this type of a platform, because if people feel funny or strange about it at first, it's like you're just here in this virtual setting. It's not a big deal. It's like it's super simple and super effective. So why not? Like, certainly not going to hurt. Give it a try. You might be amazed. And you guys have shown that even people who really aren't 100% believing right off the bat, they still get results. So, I always believe that the more, if we believe in something, it gives it even more power to be able to do its thing, because then we're not subconsciously blocking it, right? Like we can keep something from working as well. Like you can. Some people can't be hypnotized. Isn't that the truth too, Michael? Like some people, if they're resisting it,
everyone can be.
If they allow,
they'll have blocks to it, right?
Right. That's what I mean. Like
which funny enough, you can use the tapping clearing to get those blocks out of the way, so they are suggestible.
Oh wow! How about that? Cool.
Yeah.
So, but people could and you do this well as well, right? You will take clients to have a session with you and just take them through. And so we'll put that information here for them to reach out to you too. But Lotus has helped me a lot. Michael, you've helped me too. So it's absolutely helpful to have somebody take you through this. And so you don't have to learn the whole thing. You have to go through a course and learn it all. You can have someone help walk you through it, and that can be helpful too. And we'll hopefully be offering that down the road. And if not from me and Essential Therapies, see Michael and Lotus to help you get through some of these blocks. Anything else you'd like to share, either one of you?
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you sharing us, and we also really appreciate you being in our community and really taking this stuff seriously, because it's one thing to come to the class and learn it and just kind of like forget about it, but you're actually working this stuff and putting it into practical use, which is so amazing just for us to see. And so we're really grateful for you, and how awesome it is to learn what we're doing, and then actually you can apply it with other things. One of the great things that Roger Callahan found was one of his biggest discoveries, not just tapping the points, but actually finding out about the whole reversal thing. He found when you correct reversals, all other modalities that you use go up with a 40% higher success rate, right? Wow. So if you're doing physical therapy, myofascial release, your chiropractic work, even different energy clearing modalities, you'll have a higher percentage of success just by utilizing correcting reversals. Now, if you don't know what that means, it might be kind of confusing, but that's why this actually can help it. If you actually do the sore spot and actually address what you're actually going through, all of it, you'll actually start to correct a lot of those reversals just on its own. Like, even though I'm a little bit tense right now, I love and accept myself. Here's one that you can all do right now, home, watching. I love and accept myself with who I am and where I'm at. And that usually just brings the tension in the room just down. Because if you can just like who I am, because a lot of people just like I should be more, I should be further. I'm at this age, I should be more, or so much more accomplished. If you're able to just drop some of that tension, all of a sudden, more life force flows. I can heal better, faster. Right. So.
Yes. Yeah. Really good. Helps us be in the here and now. And the present moment and not getting hung up with everything else. That's what this logo for me, John Barnes started this idea of channel 3 and channel 5, kind of helping people understand being focused on the left brain or the right brain or to the heart, which channel 3 is being connected to heart and being in the present moment and feeling. And so, this area means so much to me. Anyway, I feel a lot here. So this is like this connection to heart being in channel 3. And yes, we have to function in channel 5. That's what our world is, and it's important, but you get so caught up in that. It's not where true healing happens, and it's not where we are, in our essence. And so I started doodling this 25 years ago just to remind me to be in the present moment. That was my thing. Channel 3 has always doodled hearts. So I came up with this, and then when it's flipped the other way, it's an E for essential therapies. So part of my essential therapies is being connected to heart. And this whole thing right here is so helpful. I think just bringing people's awareness to their heart center and this place of love, and then telling you yourself that you love yourself and accept yourself is huge. And even if you don't believe it right now, just keep practicing and it'll come. And that shifts our frequency and puts us in a better place. So
yeah, it's a great place to start. Yeah.
Right. Thank you guys so much for being here. Maybe we'll even have, I don't know, some essential therapies and Michael Grady and Lotus Dawn, I don't know, events. We'll have to explore that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meanwhile, I'm going to send people to you to be the other part of their energy healing and relieving so that they can be in a better place to heal fully. I just love what you're doing. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you both.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe and share if this was helpful. And remember, you are creating tomorrow's body today.